This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. KCM Wealth Management. Anybody old enough to remember the old days of elevator operators? Going up, lotions, notions, third floor. How about going up? Healthcare premiums, employment insurance premiums, Canada pension premiums. Of course, Translink. Does it ever stop? Healthcare premiums, by the way, for the 4th year in a row, going up. But that's just the beginning of the issues of how much of a tax burden can we really bear. Today's discussion is really about what are the real costs of going green. We live in this place, it's a beautiful place, as our license plates constantly remind us, that likes to boast that we're the greenest place on earth. And of course we have Mayor Moonbeam and his whole team, rah for onions on every roof. But what does it really cost us? Jason Bateman, Jason Jordan. Jason. I know what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to picture you dunking baskets. Jordan Bateman is the boss, the director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation BC branch. Great to see you here, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get some of these. Before we go to the green story, let's go to some of the ones I just prattled off. Property taxes, pretty much every year. Healthcare premiums, another $10 or $15 or $20.
Yep. Yeah, 2013 is an expensive year for taxpayers, no
Yes.
doubt about it. Especially in British Columbia, where we get the double dip. So the federal government is increasing our CPP and EI deductions.
Yeah.
And for the average guy making $50,000 a year, you're talking about now they're taking $9,000 between the employer contribution and your contribution for every job in Canada.
I just imagined about the 14 viewers that watch this program falling off the sofa when you say for the average guy who makes 50 grand. Yeah. There's not a lot of average guys making 50 grand.
I mean that's the average number they give us, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a significant cost, and
it's huge.
You wonder why unemployment, we're having troubles kind of creating jobs and sustaining jobs, despite what Premier Clark's ads tell us 1,000 times per NFL game. It's because the costs of actually employing someone keep going up, but we never talk about that burden. It's a shame.
No. And of course, Translink.
Yep.
This. I mean, for me, this is a very big one because from the beginning, I've been anti-SkyTrain, and I always have. And now we have the UBC issue. $3 billion.
Yes,
$3 billion.
Yep.
When we could have light rail.
Exactly.
Okay. So my question that I ask constantly whenever the issue of Translink comes up is, what is the corrupt relationship that someone in BC has with Bombardier and Lanolin or Lavalin?
Yes. Well, Lavalin has their own issues, as we're seeing play out in court back east.
Yes.
But my problem with SkyTrain is, was it Einstein who said the definition of insanity is when you do the same thing over and over and over again?
Yes.
The Expo line was incredibly expensive, completely inflexible, and it's there forever. So what do? We build a Millennium Line running parallel to it. Then we build the Canada line.
And put tons of people out of business on the Canada line.
And then we put people out of business on the Canada line. And now, we want to do the same with an underground SkyTrain subway line to UBC.
Look at what we did in Richmond. The city of Richmond spent something like $80 million gussifying number 3 road, okay? And it was fine as far, for what it was, okay? Like a month later, rip it down, put up all this cement for the new SkyTrain, the new Canada line. Okay, so my question is the same question I've been asking for like 40 years. Whose cousin has the cement contract?
I don't know, but I think a lot of people look at it with a lot of skepticism because we look at other communities, other cities that we want to aspire to be. Portland doesn't have SkyTrain lines. They have light rail on the ground.
Yes.
Incredibly successful, rejuvenated their downtown core. Calgary put light rail back in before it was cool. And it saved them incredible amounts of money and kept lots of cars off the road. So these things make sense. Like light rail is used everywhere else.
Everywhere.
But not BC, not in the Lower Mainland, because we need the the SkyTrain in an earthquake zone up above us. That makes perfect sense.
That makes a lot of sense. City of Dublin has a system called LUAS, built by the French for them during the heyday of the Irish economic revolution, which has sort of collapsed these days. And LUAS paid for itself in 1 year, and I've used it.
Yeah.
I've never seen a traffic accident. I was never afraid of it as a pedestrian. I don't see cars, shivering in their boots, And it's fast, it's efficient, it's clean, it's reasonably priced. What's the problem?
The problem is they're hung up on this one system. So, there was a great article in the Tyee looking at why does Translink overquote all of the light rail construction costs here? Sometimes by 4 or 5 times what it costs other communities, other cities to build.
Yes.
The bottom line is they're locked into this SkyTrain system, and they think that if I take a train, a light rail train, that I won't want to switch over to a SkyTrain when I get to the Expo Line spine. But in this day and age, who cares? Just save us the money. We talk about the $3 billion line to UBC that Mayor Moonbeam, as you delightfully call him, wants. $3 billion, Patrick Condon is a UBC sustainability expert. He says you could take that money, put it in the bank, buy every kid at UBC a Prius, in perpetuity just on the interest. Or you could take that $3 billion, you could do about 175 kilometers of light rail.
That's the part that interests me, that you could take the same amount of money as a SkyTrain system and pepper the Lower Mainland with rail communications.
You could use the old interurban line out to Langley, Chilliwack, Abbotsford, which is near and dear to our hearts in Langley. You could use the right-of-ways that already exist in the Lower Mainland and save just incredible amounts of money. So it's a choice. $3 billion for 11 kilometers. Or let's say Dr. Condon is just out to lunch and he's overshooting by half. 90 kilometers of light rail. What's going to do more for the environment?
Listen, before you became director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation BC branch, among your many incarnations, 6 years on Langley Council. So I have 2 questions. One might just be sort of comic and rhetorical. Is there a government anywhere that isn't corrupt?
Don't confuse corruption with incompetence.
Sometimes
they just screw up.
I think that's a great epitaph for you.
The incompetent politician.
Jordan Bateman, don't confuse corruption
with incompetence.
That's a good quote. That's a great quote. But the other question is, how do you make that shift from working for a city council, a municipal government, and then being the watchdog of the Taxpayers Federation? That's a sort of mental, emotional gymnastics.
Yeah, it is, it isn't. I mean, the problem with being on city council in a community other than Surrey or Vancouver is you don't have slates. So you're one independent of 9, and it's about negotiation, right?
And I like that, actually.
Yeah, and
that's okay.
There were people on my council who would have raised taxes 15% because they legitimately believed in public services and funding it by property tax dollars. There are people like me who wanted 0. We generally settled in and around the rate of inflation, sometimes slightly higher when we had firefighters to hire.
If you want 0, how do you pay for services?
Well, Penticton is doing it.
How?
The city of Penticton is in the 3rd year now of a 3-year tax freeze. In fact, they rolled back taxes 0.5%. They have saved the average homeowner about $100 a year. And I've talked with Mayor Ashton and then the CAO of Penticton, Annette Antoniak, several times. We're actually doing a feature article in our magazine about them. And they started with a core services review. So they started by looking at everything. It was a perfect storm. They had 3 union contracts up at the same time. They had a mayor and council who were spending hawks. They had a new CAO. They had a new way of doing business.
They canceled all the union contracts?
What they did is they started by looking at the program saying, okay, well, this program hasn't paid for itself in 60 years. Maybe the people are speaking, like maybe our customers are talking, right?
There could be a thought here.
So they started canceling programs that were no longer working. They then locked all of their senior staff into a room for 5 days and made them present line by line their budgets to one another. And engineering guys sitting there listening to Parks guy talk about cutting lawns. An engineering guy says, oh, we have 3 lawnmowers. Let's talk about how we can partner up. And instead of sending the parks to cut, the park lawn and the engineering guy sending his engineering lawn cutter to cut the meridian, they got together. oh, let's do this. And they found savings. They negotiated a new contract with their unions that started people at $5 less than the current contract. They cut their administration. 75 people used to make more than $75,000 a year in Penticton, down to 59 now. Penticton is bucking the trend.
A message to those of you in the health authorities in the province of BC. We want to lock all of you in a room, and we want line by line accommodations. We want to know how you spend your money, especially on addictions and mental health. You heard it first here. Okay, so we're going to go to break in a second, but let's raise the subject of going green. Driving here today, I'm driving from Pacific up Hornby.
Mayor Robertson's going to have you flogged for that.
Yeah.
That's a bike-only road.
No. I wasn't from Beach to Pacific.
Oh, okay, okay.
I was good. But right there's a series of apartment blocks. I counted 9 recycling blue bins.
Yep.
Okay, so simple question: does recycling work economically? Does it pay?
Recycling loses money for municipalities.
Yes.
I mean, it was always tough sitting at the council table and talking about recycling because it's apple pie and sunshine and roses,
Yeah, we
right?
all
And you
wanna
have to
do
do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
But it does lose money for municipalities, absolutely, because it costs money to get that material taken away, and there isn't the same demand for newsprint, for example, as there used to be.
Is there a gain somewhere other than we feel that we're doing something nice?
The gain is that you're diverting waste from landfills and from incinerators. So, that's the environmental gain.
Okay.
And, the fact
That's
taxpayers
something.
and customers, it's sort of the norm. They demand it. Most taxpayers would say recycling is something that
But it's upfront a cost.
Absolutely, yeah. It's part of your bill. It's a significant part of your trash takeaway bill.
If you were the god of all things, would you kill it?
Well, if you just look at economics, you would.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
the money isn't there, and that's why no private sector is coming in to collect it, right?
But somebody could argue that.
But there is an environmental value to it.
Well,
for
and
sure.
money, there's a money factor in environmental. I mean, if there's less stuff going to incinerators and less carbon releases,
I think you have to have a recycling program, and because it diverts the waste away, and it saves you having to build more landfills and whatnot.
Okay, let's go to all the other kinds of green initiatives. Where would you start? Name one that you think really is foolhardy.
Well, the most atrocious one for my money is the Pacific Carbon Trust. This is a provincial government program brought in by Premier Campbell when he was on his green kick.
Yes.
Wouldn't you love to have given him the books to read on his Christmas vacation instead of the ones he picked?
Yeah.
But he started this carbon trust, and essentially it takes $15 million a year out of taxpayers' wallets and puts it into big companies, Encana, Interfor, the Pan-Pacific Mountainside in Whistler, in order to do carbon reduction projects. However,
Do they?
well, the projects happen, but there's a real question about whether or not they would have happened anyways, because usually Pacific Carbon Trust money comes in so late in the process. These things were already happening, and that's what the Auditor General is looking at right now.
So this is a pea and shell game.
Yeah, absolutely. It lets them put at the bottom of their website, we're a carbon neutral government. But come on, I mean, they're still polluting. They're just buying their way out of trouble.
It also lets big corporations put at the bottom of their letterhead, we're a carbon neutral company.
Member of the Pacific Carbon Trust.
We're wrecking the social fabric and the environment anyway, but we happen to be a carbon neutral.
Well, and you're taking money out of like hospital boards, health authorities put in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because, of course, they calculate how much hospitals pollute. Well, hospitals are polluters, and they use a lot of energy. So they calculate this money, and they stroke checks for $500,000 to this Pacific Carbon Trust.
Yeah.
It goes to Encana. Meanwhile, we have waiting lists.
And what it really was about was a very business-friendly premier who many people adored. I wasn't among them. Who found another way to give money to his buddies.
I think it's corporate welfare in the name of greenwashing.
In the name of what?
Greenwashing.
Greenwashing.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go and wash ourselves green for just a moment. Give you an opportunity to send a note to davidberner.com and applaud these lovely people who help us bring this program to you here on Shaw Community Television, Cable 4. Back with you in a moment. This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. KCM Wealth Management. the Trial Lawyers Association of BC. So here's a green project for you. Well, it's not really green. I call it the DFI, the Deadly Falling Icicle Bridge.
I drove it today and survived.
Yeah, you survived.
Yeah, I did.
I
got to get home though.
Yeah. No, nobody ever, the engineers never thought about that? That wasn't an issue?
Cables over a bridge. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? What could go wrong? What could go wrong? There's nothing wrong here. Okay. $783 million for the sewage treatment plant in Greater Victoria. Now, everybody has been screaming for centuries, what's with putting all the poo in the ocean in Victoria, in the capital, okay? But you're saying, in an article you wrote for The Sun not too long ago, that actually many scientists say it's just fine. It's organic material, the ocean can handle it, so what are we spending $800 million for?
Well, exactly. If you're going to spend $783 million, you better make darn sure that you need to, in our books. I mean, that's a ton of money. You're talking about bills of up to $500 per household in the capital region in Victoria. Tons of money. So you want to make sure. Now, there are scientists there who say, look, we've been doing this for 50 years, sending our sewage out there. There's never been a problem in any of our beaches. It's like a couple of drops in a huge bucket of water and immediately gets taken out to sea. It's not a problem. But because, the United States was giving us grief over it, and because Mr. Floaty, the guy who dressed up like poop,
Mr. Poop,
because that was such a wonderful icon for Victoria to rally around, we're spending all this money.
Are they going to have, we remember when, I think when Mikey was the premier, or the mayor, we used to have these signs at Boundary Road that said we're a nuclear-free zone or some darn thing. Will Victoria have a poop-free zone or something?
Poop-free since 2018, I hope not, but you never know with these politicians.
Is this started? Has this started? Are they actually doing it?
They have dragged their heels as long as they could,
Yes.
But the regional district now seems to be in the process of, but the funny thing is,
Yes.
the province is saying we're going to take it over and do it because you guys just keep arguing about it. But the Green Party in the recent federal by-elections ran against it.
The Green Party ran against it?
The Green Party ran against cleaning up. Only the NDP supported it. And
so it's all about perception.
I think it's all about perception. These scientists agree. And I'm saying, look, if you're going to spend $783 million, it needs to be about more than just perception.
Okay, $450 million for a waste incinerator.
Yes, Metro Vancouver. Now, there was a great article in BC Business Magazine recently talking about the old head of Metro Vancouver, Johnny Carline.
Yes.
And they were joking around saying, oh, Johnny, he knew that these regional leaders were so busy with their own municipalities, he would write these huge technical reports, throw it on their desk, knowing it would be rubber stamped, because no one would read it, right?
Of course.
And of course, being in municipal government, I can tell you that most of those regional representatives, absolutely, their first duty is to Surrey or Vancouver or Langley, not to the Metro Vancouver. So now they want to do $450 million on a waste incinerator, basically taking jobs out of the private sector's hand, because right now the private sector takes the trash to Cache Creek. Right. Cache Creek's mayor still wants the trash.
Yes.
We're reducing our trash load by
great
by
platform.
recycling.
Bring us your trash.
Exactly. It's jobs for that community.
Yes.
And yet, we're going to build this $450 million incinerator, which Abbotsford, at the tail end of Metro Vancouver, is saying, hold on, because we're going to get all the air pollution from this. They, of course, are the experts because they fought off Sumas Energy back, 10 years ago.
Of course,
I take what they say about the airshed very seriously because they've worked these files and proven themselves right over and over again.
Yes.
But, what's $500 million? So we'll just pollute their airshed and off we go.
What about the local city initiatives, the bike lanes, gardens on every roof, a goat and a chicken in every backyard?
Yes.
I mean, is this just beyond silly or what?
Well, and food scrap composting. So.
Oh yeah, food scrap composting.
Well, and this is a scary one because what we're starting to hear.
FCC.
Yeah.
I belong to the FCC.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the FCC
food scrap committee.
FCC.
Yeah. Have you ever known a food scrap composter, Mr. Berner?
Yeah.
They're bringing these are popping up in every community. They brought them into Langley. I live on a block with about 50 houses.
Okay.
One food scrap composter out there. And the reason why is where they did the pilot project in Langley, anecdotally, those people found an increase in rat population. Because of course you're sticking food out in buckets. And, that brings rats out of the kind of more
Might as
rural
well
areas.
have megaphones
Yeah.
going through the neighborhood going, rats!
Have a Pied Piper walking down the street and have them all come out, right?
Exactly. We have scraps.
Exactly. So I'm waiting to see when public health starts to go, hey, we've noticed an increase in rat population in these communities. We probably should talk about this food scrap composting program. They're having problems figuring out where to send the food scraps. They're going to Richmond right now. The neighbors hate it because the stench is unbelievable and it's devaluing their property. There's a huge fight in Langley right now trying to prevent Metro Vancouver from putting a composting plant there. We talked about recycling earlier and how most people are in favor of that.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, composting food scraps separately is going a little too far. And there's going to be a bit of a pushback on this as some of these public health issues pop up.
Rich Coleman is very upset this morning or last night that Surrey didn't accept the casino plan.
Yes.
Maybe we could have a casino and a food scrap composting place all in one location.
Yes. Or we could compost actually at a city hall somewhere and let them deal with the stench instead of the poor taxpayers.
What do you make of this urban agriculture, or urban animal husbandry, a chicken and a goat in every yard?
I live in Langley where 80% of the land is in the agricultural land reserve.
Yes.
We find it very amusing to think that you'd want to raise chickens or bees or whatever in your backyard.
Yeah. I find it both amusing and really irritating.
How do you need the bureaucracy involved, right? Because you have to approve these chicken coops, you have to approve the chickens, and then they were actually going to pay money for a chicken homeless shelter at one point.
Excuse me?
Oh, Vancouver, they
No,
have.
you're making that up.
No, Vancouver has a plan in place. So if I buy chickens and get tired of them in my little house in Shaughnessy, not that there's anything little in Shaughnessy, but and I want to get rid of them. They actually had as part of their animal control.
Never thought of that.
What happens to the chickens?
I can see a famous folk singer on a commercial with a photo of a crying chicken.
Yes.
This poor chicken hasn't had a friend in 14 years, but with your donation, we
Sarah
can...
McLachlan singing "I Will Remember You."
Well,
little chicken
I was
looking
going
sad.
out of my way not to mention the singer, but...
Well, let's name drop.
Yeah.
Vancouver also has the hilariously named Lawns to Loaves program, where they wanted you to replant your lawn with wheat.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Are you making this? This is another one of these things you make up?
They gave a $5,000 or $10,000 grant
Yes.
to a community group to
LTL.
go out there and push for lawns to loaves. Take out your grass,
Yeah.
plant wheat. But wheat is hard to grow, number one. Number two, you grow the wheat and then you're going to pick it, mill it, and make how much flour can you get out of a small patch of wheat?
First of all, if you grow wheat, you have to belong to a combine.
Yes.
Because only 7
That's
companies
right.
are allowed to grow wheat in Canada.
The wheat board will come after
The wheat board. Remember that in Canada, we are the authors of that world famous philosophical question: which came first, the chicken marketing board or the egg marketing board? And secondly, CIL Chemicals will be after you to use their enhanced wheat that you have to replant every year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and
it's
not
a
surprisingly, you drive around town, you're not seeing a lot of wheat fields in Vancouver because it's such a ludicrous suggestion.
Has anybody ever sharpened their pencil on bicycle lanes?
Bicycle lanes are interesting because they're only a real issue in Vancouver.
Yes.
We're building tons of bicycle lanes in Surrey and Langley and Coquitlam and Burnaby. They just get done. When they're redoing a road, they quietly add in a bicycle lane. It's this militant downtown core thing that the rest of the province kind of snickers at, where it becomes this huge fight. And it's because they're taking away from the businesses. But don't worry, Vancouver City Hall report said it only had a moderate impact on the businesses, only $2.5 million a year.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, that's it.
And what did it cost to build?
Well, it costs
millions.
Yeah, millions, and it would cost millions to take out, which is the problem.
Is there a process, we only have a couple of minutes left, Jordan Bateman, is there a process that you would recommend for initiatives like this, for any kind of municipal public initiatives? I'm talking about an economic process.
Yeah, when we talk about sustainability at City Hall level and regional district level, we never talk about economic sustainability. So we mean it always in the environmental sense. But, economic sustainability has to be part of that equation. You cannot just spend, hoping you're going to get green results at the end, because you'll bankrupt your community. You'll take money away from the core services you need and infrastructure you need. So you've got to be able to sit down and justify it.
That was my question that I meant to ask you about Penticton. You praised what Penticton is doing, but my question, in terms of being economically sound, but my question to you was, do they have fewer firemen, fewer police, fewer ambulances?
Fewer managers.
No, but do they have fewer of those real services?
No, they haven't cut those people,
Okay.
to my knowledge. And I went to Penticton. They're in year 3. The roads are all, there's no potholes in the roads.
Okay.
It's not anarchy with little ladies chasing me towards the Lake
If you have an emergency, you can get someone to show up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Everything there seems to be working fine. It's just they actually talked about it and killed all the sacred cows and said, we're going to look at every single expenditure and find ways to maximize value for our customers who are taxpayers. And I think that was the big change for them.
Somebody should go into Vancouver City Hall and look at the social planning department, which is enormous and is filled with people who do meetings all day and meet with each other and all agree about how wonderful they are. Yeah. So you got a minute left. So what would you do in this process to provide financial sustainability?
You've got to hold, we as taxpayers have got to hold our city halls to account. Yes. Listen, there's 200 city halls across the province. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation can't be in every single one looking at budgets. So we rely on property tax groups and taxpayers themselves to help us build the kind of narratives. Yes. And now we're going to start looking at trends. If we see something happening in a few communities, we can go to this local government auditor general and say, listen, this seems weird, can you look into it?
Who pays for Canadian taxpayers?
At taxpayers, after tax dollars, absolutely no government money comes to us.
Lovely, Jordan. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure.
Dynamite. Okay, next week, Mark Lalonde is the director of CKR Global Risk Solutions. He's a former Vancouver cop who travels the world, including to the United Nations, to talk about security issues. And what do you think we're going to talk about, boys and girls? Yes, the Obama gun control initiatives. You can go on the internet and buy 42 AK-47s in about 0.09 seconds. What kind of a world do we live in, I ask you? Great to see you. Hope you enjoyed seeing us, and we look forward to seeing you again here soon on Shaw Community Television, Cable 4. Good night.